Last week's dismal jobs report showed hiring is weak. Just 22,000 jobs added last month. The unemployment rate rose to the highest level in 4 years, and the industries most exposed to tariffs, like manufacturing, are shedding jobs.
6,000 jobs in August alone, 7,000 lost in construction. Manufacturing and wholesale trade losing 12,000 jobs apiece in 1 month. If you look at those tariff-exposed industries, they started losing jobs shortly after this trade war started.
Can you believe this? America's job market isn't just slowing down. It's cracking wide open under the pressure of tariffs, retaliation, and a silent workforce exodus no one wants to talk about. And the real shock is this: entire pillars of the U.S. economy are buckling as industries lose markets. Companies slash jobs, and whole regions watch their livelihoods evaporate. But the most disturbing twist? The very policies meant to protect America are now gutting its own industries from the inside out.
Job growth in the past 3 months has all but ended. There were just 22,000 new jobs created last month, and new revised data showed the economy actually lost jobs in June, the first time that's happened.
America's workforce is walking straight into a storm, and the warning signs aren't subtle anymore. They're screaming. Layoffs are rising, hiring is freezing, unemployment is creeping up, and worker confidence is collapsing. Companies that once raced to expand are now pulling back, shrinking job postings, leaving openings unfilled, and slamming the brakes so hard the entire economy is skidding.
And unemployment ticked up to 4.3%, the highest in nearly 4 years. An economy that's stalling out is bad news for any president, but particularly for one who...
And even those who still have jobs can feel the ground shifting beneath them. The fear is everywhere, from factory floors to office cubicles, because this doesn't look like a normal slowdown. It feels like the start of something much bigger and much worse. For the first time in years, Americans aren't asking where to find better work. They're asking if they'll still have work at all next month.
This morning, he placed the blame on his economic nemesis, the Fed chair, Jerome Powell. Jerome, too late. Powell should have lowered rates long ago. As usual, he's too late.
Tariffs were supposed to protect American industries, but let's be honest, they poured gasoline on an already burning job market. The moment those new duties kicked in, costs exploded for every business relying on imported metals, components, or materials. Overnight, companies stopped thinking about growth and started thinking about survival. And when survival mode hits, the first thing to get cut is always jobs. Payroll freezes, halted expansions, canceled projects, all because the basic cost of doing business suddenly doubled. Across the country, factories are delaying production, manufacturers are shelving new investments, and entire sectors are quietly admitting they can't compete under these price pressures. And tariffs shoved entire industries into retreat.
Manufacturing jobs fell for the 4th straight month, which means America has lost 78,000 manufacturing jobs so far this year.
If you really want to understand how deep this crisis runs, just look at the companies cutting jobs, not tiny firms, but giants. HP slashing thousands, Verizon wiping out entire departments, Amazon eliminating corporate roles, and a long list of household names quietly doing the same. When the biggest players in the economy start shrinking their workforce, it's not a business adjustment. It's a red flag the size of Texas. And here's the part that should worry everyone. These companies aren't just trimming fat, they're cutting muscle. Roles that once felt untouchable are suddenly disappearing because rising costs, shrinking demand, and global pressure are leaving them no room to breathe. Layoffs aren't isolated events anymore. They're becoming a pattern.
Shutdown is affecting hundreds of thousands of federal workers who are going without pay, and the IRS says it plans to furlough more than 34,000 employees, effectively shuttering taxpayer call centers. And more jobs are set to get slashed as pressure builds to reopen the government.
As if the economy wasn't unstable enough, the prolonged government shutdown pushed it even closer to the edge. Thousands of federal workers were sidelined overnight, agencies went dark, and critical economic data stopped flowing. With no clear numbers and no functioning systems, businesses froze, delaying hires, pausing contracts, and holding back investments because no one knew what was coming next.
AI is no longer an abstract threat. It's causing job loss right now, and the headlines, they tell the story. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, on Wednesday released a study that found that artificial intelligence can already replace 11.7% of the U.S. labor market.
While tariffs hammered companies from the outside, AI hit them from the inside. Businesses pouring billions into automation aren't doing it for innovation. They're doing it to cut headcount. Tasks that used to require full teams are now handled by software, and employers are realizing they can get the same work done with fewer people. The result? Hiring slows, roles disappear, and entire departments get restructured before workers even see it coming. AI isn't just changing the workplace. It's reducing the need for workers altogether, right when the economy needs jobs the most.
22,000 jobs added during the month of August. That is a fraction of what economists were expecting. It's crazy to think that not even a year ago, back in December, the economy was adding 300,000+ jobs. Now we're, not even 10% of that.
Here's where it gets uncomfortable. On paper, the U.S. added 119,000 new jobs in September 2025. But at the exact same time, unemployment still climbed to 4.4%, the highest in almost 4 years. And if you think that's strange, look at what companies are actually doing. In October alone, businesses announced 153,000 job cuts, almost 3 times the number from the same month last year. By the end of October, total job cut announcements hit 1.09 million for the year, a massive 65% jump from 2024. That's not a healthy labor market, that's a warning siren. Even weekly data shows the trend. Private sector employers have been shedding an average of 13,500 jobs per week, pushing more Americans back into the job hunt than the economy can absorb.
You mentioned that ticking up from 4.2% to 4.3%. That's not high per se, but it is the highest since late 2021. And Fed Chair Powell, he has said that that's the number one indicator that he's looking at for evidence of weakness in this job market.
And this is where the picture gets even darker. The job market isn't collapsing on its own. It's being pushed hard. The latest tariff wave has slammed American industries with costs they were never built to absorb. When the price of imported metals, components, machinery, and raw materials jumps overnight, companies don't magically find extra cash. They start cutting. They delay production. They freeze expansion. They shelve new projects that were supposed to create the next round of jobs.
Due to the tariffs, our prices are rising drastically, and it's also created a market disruption and impacted our demand.
Factories that once ran full shifts are now operating at half speed because the materials they depend on cost 20%, 30%, even 50% more than before. Small manufacturers are tapping out altogether, saying they can't survive another quarter under these conditions. And every time a plant slows down or an investment gets canceled, the job market loses another chunk of oxygen. The brutal truth is this: tariffs didn't strengthen American industries, they suffocated them. And when businesses can't breathe, workers are the first ones to feel the choke.
Few Americans have been hit as hard as farmers. The tariffs and China's retaliation have really been a gut punch, especially for soybean farmers.
And just when U.S. industries were struggling to stay upright, China delivered the hit that knocked rural America to its knees. Practically overnight, the U.S.'s biggest agricultural buyer pulled back and exports collapsed. By mid-2025, soybean shipments to China were down nearly 80%, leaving ports quiet and harvests sitting in storage with nowhere to go. Billions in farm revenue vanished, credit tightened across rural towns, and processing plants slowed to a crawl. For many farmers, this wasn't a setback. It was a sudden economic blackout that hit the heartland exactly when it could least afford it.
Largest agricultural export, worth more than $24 billion last year. About half of that went to China. This year, that number is effectively zero after Beijing imposed 20% tariffs on U.S. soybeans in retaliation for tariffs on Chinese goods.
While U.S. farmers were scrambling, Brazil moved in overnight and took the market America lost. China shifted the bulk of its soybean purchases to Brazil, which now supplies over 70% of China's imports. And once a country finds a cheaper, stable supplier, that business rarely comes back. For the U.S., this isn't a pause, it's a replacement. Farmers didn't just lose a customer, they lost their biggest customer to a competitor that can now deliver at scale. And every month this continues, that lost market share becomes harder, if not impossible, to recover.
Monday, China began imposing tariffs on several U.S. farm products. Beijing announcing last week an additional 15% tariff on chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton, and a 10% tariff on sorghum, soybeans, pork, beef, and several other products.
China's retaliation hit far beyond soybeans, slapping tariffs on major U.S. farm goods and instantly driving up prices. Rural communities felt the shock through tighter credit, reduced plant shifts, and farms losing buyers as China shifted purchases to Brazil. Manufacturing suffered too. Tariffs raised costs for steel, batteries, and key components, delaying production and canceling expansions. EV makers struggled, factories cut capacity, and hiring slowed as companies faced rising costs and weakening demand.
Economists say at best that effort is off to a slow start, but at worst it's actually backfiring completely, that it's been counterproductive because first of all, you're causing a lot of uncertainty, right? A lot of businesses, they don't know where tariffs are going to be, and so they're kind of paralyzed. They're not hiring at all.
All of this has pushed worker anxiety through the roof. People are clinging to jobs they don't feel safe in because finding new work feels impossible. And now, economists are warning that this combination, collapsing exports, higher costs, slow hiring, and rapid automation, is pushing the U.S. close to a labor market breaking point.